Shabbat Shalom, everybody. There we go. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Hopefully, my phone does not fly out of my little tripod here, because the claws that hold it are less than ideal. You know what? I'll just show you. Look at this. So these ones are wrapped in duct tape, and these ones have two earplugs that I super glued to it because they actually grab the phone a little bit better. But we're in a state of mild deterioration, and over the last few days, the phone has just been flying out of that little bracket at the top of the tripod. So, Father, let your will be done. If the phone goes flying, the phone goes flying. So, we are in Leviticus 17 this morning, YHWH 17. I am the only human being awake in my house right now. And I'm in my house rather than outside right now because we have at least 5 roosters at the moment that I know of. And the sheep. These sheep are getting vocal, y'all. And it's funny how we are repeatedly compared to sheep in this book because, you know, sheep can't see very far. Do you know that? They're nearsighted. And they whine a lot. Meh. Meh. And they require a decent amount of attention from their master to keep them on the straight and narrow. And when they get panicked, they just run, sometimes right into a fence or a wall or a post or something else. They're just, I totally understand why we are called sheep. YHWH 17, Leviticus 17. Now, we just did 15 and 16 last week, so if you haven't read those, you should go read those. That deals with bodily fluids and being unclean in 15, and then in 16 deals with atonement and the scapegoat. And we had a pretty interesting discussion last week around Matthew 3 and baptism and Enoch 8 and Genesis 6 and Genesis 15 and the apocalypse of Abraham and who is Azazel and fallen angels and yada, yada, yada. So feel free to go watch that. 17 and 18 are both short-ish books of Leviticus. I mean, like, 17 is pretty short. It's similar to Leviticus 12 as far as being remarkable and how short that Torah is, that instruction is. 12 is very simple. It's like, listen, if you're a lady and you get pregnant and you have a baby, if it's a boy kid, you're unclean this long. And if it's a girl kid, you're unclean this long. The end. Next chapter. So we'll just go ahead and get started. 17. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, and that's God spoke to Moses, if you got a King James. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to Aaron and his sons, and all the children of Israel, that's us, and say to them, this is the word which Yahweh has commanded, saying, any man from the house of Israel who slays a bull or a lamb or a goat in the camp, or who slays it outside of the camp, and does not bring it to the door of the tent of appointment, to bring an offering to Yahweh before the dwelling place of Yahweh, blood guilt is reckoned to that man. He has shed blood, and that man shall be cut off from among his people. In order that the children of Israel bring their slaughterings, which they slaughter in an open field, and they shall bring them to Yahweh at the door of the tent of appointment to the priest, and slaughter them as slaughterings of peace offerings to Yahweh. So these first 5 verses here, what it's saying is, the Father spoke to Moshe, his man on the ground, literally, and said, listen, if your people, the children of Israel, my people, the children of Israel, are going to be slaughtering animals, they need to be bringing them to the tent of appointment. Which sounds kind of like, whatever, Dad. You know, that's kind of what would go through my mind. Okay, Dad. But it makes me wonder why. Okay, all of our animals have to be slaughtered at the tent of appointment. Remember, 600,000 military-age males amongst the Hebrews, estimated to be between 3 and 5 million people, plus their 5 to 10 million head of livestock. This is a lot of people and animals. Now, which would necessitate a lot of slaughtering. However, it's important to understand that protein isn't necessarily part of their menu every day. In fact, most animals were slaughtered either as an offering of thanks, a peace offering, as a sin offering, or on the feasts. You know, the 3 appointed times per year that we meet with the Father. Pesach, or Pushak, which is not Pushak, it's Pesach. Shavuot, and Sukkot, when the Father commands us to go camping, which is coming up, and I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait. So, I mean, I say coming up, it's still months away, but I can't wait. I can't wait. So all that being said, why do we need to bring these animals to the tent of appointment? Let's get into it. 6. And the priest shall sprinkle the blood on the slaughter place of Yahweh at the door of the tent of appointment, and shall burn the fat for sweet fragrance to Yahweh. And let them, the children of Israel, no longer slaughter their slaughterings to demons after whom they whored. No longer slaughter your slaughterings to demons after whom they whored. This is a law forever for them throughout their generations. So, they were slaughtering animals as an offering to something or someone else. And that had Yahweh ticked off. And that's why he said, listen, you bring them to me. These are mine. Don't go whoring after these other idols, these other demons. Tell me the Old Testament's not relative to our lives. Man. Who are you giving thanks to? Are you giving it to someone else, something else, or are you giving it to the Father? Who are you? What are you saving towards? Something else, someone else, or the Father? Right? Where does your joy come from? These offerings are in part an embodiment of their energy, because they've put a lot of time, effort, and energy into these animals. And so to give one up, to offer that energy up and that time up to something else that's not Yah. We should remember this. And say to them, this is 8, and say to them, any man of the house of Israel, or the stranger who sojourns among you, who offers an ascending offering or slaughtering, and does not bring it to the door of the tent of appointment to do it to Yahweh, that man shall be cut off among his people. Any of you that are participating in this demon, witchcraft, sorcery, offering things up to anybody other than Yahweh, you will be cut off from the children of Israel. And any man of the house of Israel, or strangers who sojourn among you, who eats any blood. So we understand the context here of 17, the reason that they are bringing these things to the tent of appointment, these animals to the tent of appointment, is so that they're not partaking of blood, and they're not slaughtering offerings to other small g gods, demons, so forth, so on. Which, there's a couple things we need to look at here, and we're going to. And any man of the house of Israel, or a stranger who sojourns among you, who eats any blood, I shall set my face against that being who eats blood, and shall cut him off from among his people. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the slaughter place to make atonement for your lives. For it is the blood that makes atonement for life. Okay. We can't just skip over that, because I have said before, and I mean it, you can find Yeshua Messiah in every chapter, in every book in the Bible. So flip over to Hebrews 9:17. Some of y'all who have been with me a while and who've been paying attention know that I don't love Hebrews, and the reason I don't love Hebrews is because any serious biblical scholar, not that I'm not, but any serious biblical scholar can tell you that Hebrews is the most recent book in the Bible, written up to 400 years after the death of Messiah, and most likely, almost entirely probably not written by Paul. Written by somebody who was trying to sound like Paul, and there's some incredibly questionable translation of the book of Jeremiah in Hebrews that leads to a whole lot of confusion. All of this is biblical fact. This isn't T's opinion of it. This is biblical fact. So the book of Hebrews is, I don't know if questionable is the word, but its lineage and its backstory and historicity are all more doubted than the rest of the Bible. How's that for an answer? But, is all scripture divinely inspired? Yeah. Remember when that was written that scripture was before the New Testament. That the New Testament was some Gospels and an Apocalypse and some letters back and forth that at the time weren't considered scriptures. They were testimony and letters back and forth. So, now that doesn't mean, and please understand, that doesn't mean that there isn't validity to them, because there is. But that passage, all scripture is for our benefit, is referring to the scriptures that they had at hand when it was written, which was the Old Testament. Anyway, let's go to Hebrews 9. What did I say? 9:17. That's what I thought it said. Hebrews 9:17. For a covenant over those dead is firm, since it is never valid while the covenanted one is living. Did I write this down wrong? I have been so bad at that lately. No, I just have bad handwriting. I think that's 9. Yeah, it's Hebrews 9:11. Bad handwriting. Let's try again. But Messiah, having become a high priest of the coming good matters, through the greater and more perfect tent, not made with hands, that is, not of this creation, entered into the most set-apart place once and for all, not with the blood of goats and calves, but with his own blood, having obtained everlasting redemption. For if the blood of bulls and goats and ashes of a heifer sprinkling the defiled sets apart for the cleansing of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of the Messiah, who through the everlasting Spirit offered himself unblemished to Elohim, cleanse your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim? And because he is the mediator of a renewed covenant, you should circle and underline that. And because he is the mediator of a renewed, not new, renewed covenant, so that death having taken place for redemption of the transgressions under the first covenant, those who are called might receive the promise of everlasting inheritance. For where a covenant is, it is necessary for the death of the covenanted one to be established. Okay. We jump down to 22. And according to the Torah, almost all is cleansed with blood, and without shedding of blood, there is no forgiveness. Okay. So, once again, if you understand Torah, you can understand the New Testament much better in its own context. But more importantly here, what we see is the establishment of this renewed covenant with Yeshua as the mediator of this contract between us and the Father, predicated on blood. And blood is very important. In fact, we'll go to Acts 15 as well. I know, all the flipping, listen. This is better and more profitable flipping than you're going to get in any Sunday church, okay? Believe me. Or at least any Sunday church I've been in, where we would just flip around the book. We'll pick 3 verses, put them up on the projector or up on the whiteboard or up on the screen as the tech team hits the buttons and makes them appear. And then we'll just camp on these 3 unrelated verses, all with some sort of common theme that we can cobble together a message. Bro, we have a message. It's bound in between the outer pages of this book right here. So, Acts 15, 19 through 21. Therefore, I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim. This is a Torah, an instruction, the law for the Gentiles who are coming to believe in Messiah. Therefore, that I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim, but that we write to them to abstain from the defilements of idols. That's really important. And from whoring, and from that is strangled, and from the blood. For from ancient generations Moshe has in every city those proclaiming him, being read in the congregations every Sabbath. This is what I talk about repeatedly. Gentile believers in Messiah, people who were not Jews, coming to Messiah, what should they do? And this argument was over circumcision. Do we need circumcision? And if you begin reading at 15, and certain men came down from Yehuda, from Judah, and were teaching the brothers, unless you are circumcised according to the practice of Moshe, you are unable to be saved. And then you get into the concept here of, circumcising the heart, right? And yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But within that context, the argument was, what do you have to do to be saved by Messiah? And then we get to 15:19, therefore, to answer that question, what do I have to do to be saved? Therefore, I judge that we should not trouble those from among the nations who are turning to Elohim, who are coming to the Father, but that we write to them to abstain from the defilement of idols, don't worship idols, and from whoring, don't sleep around, don't go outside of your marriage, and from that is strangled, and from blood. For from ancient generations Moshe has in every city, meaning forever, there has been a place in every city forever of those proclaiming Moshe and reading his words every Sabbath. Go to the congregations every Sabbath and hear the words of Moshe. This is what we've talked about. You're a new believer as a Gentile in Messiah. What should I do? Don't worship idols. Don't eat strangled food. Don't drink blood. Don't do whoring. Go to the temple on Shabbat and learn the Torah. This was the instruction of the apostles to the Gentiles. But here, yet again, we have the blood. And I want to be clear about this. This is not my interpretation. This is not my belief. This is what your Bible says here in 15:19, which is why I think it's really important that we read along. We read our own Bible. We see it with our own eyes, okay? But, yeah, we don't drink blood. We don't eat blood. Why? Because the Father tells us to, and then the apostles of Yeshua tell us, look, we don't do this stuff. Okay, cool. And in fact, here we go. We'll go back to Vayikra, to Leviticus 12. Therefore, I said to the children of Israel, no being amongst you eats blood, nor does any stranger who sojourns amongst you eat blood. Any man from the children of Israel, or from the strangers who sojourn amongst you, who hunts and catches any beast or bird which is eaten, shall pour out its blood and cover it with dust. For it is the life of all flesh, its blood is for its life. And I said to the children of Israel, do not eat any blood of any flesh, for the life of all flesh is in its blood. Anyone eating it is cut off. And any being who eats a carcass or what was torn by a beast, be he native or stranger, he shall wash his garments and bathe in water, and shall be unclean until evening. Then he shall be clean. And if he does not wash or bathe his body, then he shall bear his crookedness. You'll suffer for it. Meaning that it's entirely possible for you to get sick from eating a carcass that has been torn. Now this could be, roadkill. An animal that was killed by a pack of dogs, or a lion, or a coyote, or a bear, or a wolf, or a T-Rex, or whatever. So, point being here, we don't eat blood. Why? What is all this in context of? Demons. We talked about, and that's, again, it's not my word. That's smack dab in the middle of Leviticus 17. It's right there I can find it. Right there, 17:7. And let them no longer slaughter their slaughterings to demons after whom they hoard. And what does Acts 15:19-21 say? Don't partake in this idolatry. Don't do whoring. Don't drink blood. Nothing that's strangled. Okay, so all this is pagan worship. So abstain from pagan worship, which is direct from the Father. Remember, these guys, the Father is dwelling in their midst. When Moshe was up on the mountain receiving the law for 40 days, yes, he was up there for 40 days. Interesting parallel. And I had this thought, and we'll come right back to it. And I have nothing to substantiate it on. But when Moshe was up there for 40 days, there was a cloud on the mountain. These people have seen Yahweh. They were led by a column of smoke and a column of fire out of Mitzrayim. These are the same people. They've seen the Almighty, and yet they still do whatever the hell they want to do. I was wondering, and just as a purely metaphysical thought, if when Yeshua goes into the wilderness for 40 days, if he was communing through space-time with Moshe, who was on the mountain in the presence of the messenger, capital M, messenger of Yahweh, who is Yeshua Messiah. They're both 40-day periods. And we have this as part of his, he was baptized to fulfill all righteousness. And then he immediately gets baptized and is led by the Spirit into the wilderness, where he's tried, but he's also there for 40 days. Moshe was on the mountain for 40 days, communing with the Father and the messenger of Yahweh, who is Yeshua, capital M, messenger. That's how we know it's not the Father, it's not the Spirit, because they're both mentioned, and then we have the messenger of Yahweh, who's Messiah. I wonder if there was a metaphysical thing going on there, where they were jamming. And I have nothing I can't substantiate it with a passage that I know of, but we know that elsewhere in the Bible, in the Old Testament, where the patriarchs receive the law, they receive it from Messiah. And I'm wondering if that was what was up. And Yeshua is constantly telling the Pharisees, hey man, you didn't know Moshe, so you don't know me. And he clearly had a command of Moshe's teaching. Maybe he's the one that gave it to him. There's a thought for your Shabbat morning. All right, I gotta drink this coffee. Ain't no mountain high enough. Sorry, half asleep. Mountain. That's the second time. The first coherent thought I had this morning as I was laying in bed was the opening licks to Stevie Ray Vaughan's Voodoo Child. And then the lyric, I'm standing next to the mountain. And I just got done talking about a mountain, and then I had the urge to sing about a mountain. Maybe I'll drink some Mountain Dew later. Probably not. I wonder what's going on with the mountain. Interesting. Okay. Leviticus 18. And Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Who? Yahweh, your Elohim. I'm the guy. Remember me? I'm the boss around here. Do not do as they do in the land of Mitzrayim where you dwelt, and do not do as they do in the land of Canaan where I am bringing you, and do not walk in their laws. Okay, so I'm Yahweh, you do my things. And so in 18 we have a list of who you can hashtag go team with and who you cannot hashtag go team with. In case you ever wondered, whatever, like what's an appropriate relationship and what isn't. Do my right rulings and guard my laws to walk in them. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. That right there, 18, 1 through 3, 1 through 4, 1 through 5, we should probably just all get tattooed on our foreheads. Do my right rulings and guard my laws and walk in them. I am Yahweh your Elohim, and you shall guard my laws and my right rulings, which a man does and lives by them. I am Yahweh. No one is to approach anyone of his own flesh to uncover his nakedness. I am Yahweh. Okay, uncover his nakedness. It was saying like, don't shack up with no one, your own flesh, meaning that you begat. Okay, remember the begats. And then Chabada begat Shemanu, and Shemanu begat Chabada, and Chabada begat Zebubadi, and Zebubadi begat. Right, remember all that crap? Okay. And so, anybody you begat, you don't approach to uncover their nakedness. Okay? Okay. Basic rule of life. All right. The nakedness of your father or the nakedness of your mother you do not uncover. She is your mother. You do not uncover her nakedness. No shacking up with mom. The nakedness of your father's wife you do not uncover. It is your father's nakedness. No shacking up with dad's other wife. Which some people would say, yeah, they had so many wives back then. I know lots of people in my life currently who have had more than one wife. Not necessarily at the same time, but they've had more than one wife. So we need to be careful to not immediately just discard this teaching. Yeah. And I know lots of people who have had a mom and a stepmom, or a dad and a stepdad. Okay? So it does apply. The nakedness of your father's wife you do not uncover. It is your father's nakedness. The nakedness of your sister, the daughter of your father, or the daughter of your mother, whether born at home or elsewhere, their nakedness you do not uncover. The nakedness of your son's daughter, or your daughter's daughter, their nakedness you do not uncover, for theirs is your own nakedness. Grandkids, don't mess with them. The nakedness of your father's wife's daughter, brought forth by your father, she is your sister, you do not uncover her nakedness. The nakedness of your father's sister, you do not uncover, she is your father's flesh. The nakedness of your own mother's sister, you do not uncover, she is your mother's flesh. The nakedness of your father's brother, you do not uncover, you do not approach his wife, she is your aunt. Really, guys, she's your aunt. The nakedness of your daughter-in-law you do not uncover. She is your son's wife. You do not uncover her nakedness. The nakedness of your brother's wife you do not uncover. It's your brother's nakedness. The nakedness of a woman and her daughter you do not uncover, nor do you take her son's daughter or her daughter's daughter to uncover her nakedness. They are her relatives. It is wickedness. Wickedness. And remember, we just got done with instruction about how to not be pagan. Okay? No whoring, which a lot of this would fall right under whoring, but we also see right here in 18:17, it is wickedness. No whoring. Don't slaughter animals to demons or other gods. Don't drink blood. Don't fornicate. Don't do the things. Okay? So bear that context in mind with this instruction. And do not take a woman as a rival to her sister to uncover her nakedness while the other is alive. And do not approach a woman to uncover her nakedness in her monthly separation of uncleanness. Don't be riding the crimson wave. You know, if Aunt Flo's in town, there will be no visitors. And do not have intercourse with the wife of your neighbor to defile yourself with her. And do not give any of your offspring to pass through Molech. And do not profane the name of your Elohim. I am Yahweh. Okay. We're going to pause right there. 18:21. Flip to 1 Kings 11:7. Yes, 1 Kings 11:7. In 1 Kings, we have a brief story here of Saloma, which is Solomon. And sovereign Solomon loved many foreign women in addition to the daughter of Pharaoh, Moabite, Ammonite, Edomite, Sidonian, and Hittite women. And from the nations of whom Yahweh had said to the children of Israel, you do not go into them, they do not go into you, Solomon clung to these in love. For they shall certainly turn away your hearts after their mighty ones. So we have this instruction here from the Father saying, don't shack up with these people. They'll turn you away from me to their mighty ones, their small g gods. Well, Solomon didn't heed that. And then we can see in 11:7, then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the abomination of Moab, on the hill that is east of Jerusalem, and for Molech, the abomination of the children of Ammon. Okay, so there's more of that Moloch. Molech, not Malach. Malach means messenger of Yahweh. WTF, what is this thing? So, the small g god of child sacrifice was Moloch, and this was a common thing done back in the day. They have found mass graves there that east of Jerusalem of lots and lots and lots of children, the corpses of children, remains of children in one area, one concentrated area. Some people have surmised that this was a large bronze statue that was heated with fire that had kind of like a basin in it, and then they would throw the child into there. What the hell is wrong with people? If that's not demonic, I don't know what is. And this is why the Father tells us not to do that. Do not give any of your offspring to pass through to Molech. And some translations say to pass through the fire to Molech, because they used fire to kill children for this small g god, which was clearly demonic. This is what the Father's saying. It's kind of like, all it starts with is just a little blood, and the next thing you know, you're passing your kids over to Moloch. That's disgusting. It makes me want to go back in time right now with a battle axe or a broadsword and just start swinging. Like, how do you not? Right? And this is something else that people are like, well, I don't understand how the children of Levi were able to go through the camp with their swords on their thighs and slay their brothers. Let me tell you something right now. You start sacrificing children, you could be my own flesh and blood and I will lop your head off. Are you kidding me? You know, and the reason that people don't understand how the Hebrews could, cleanse their ranks from time to time is because they don't read their Bible in context. I would lop your head off, you, right now. If I caught you in the act of sacrificing a child, we'd have nothing to talk about. I wouldn't even hesitate. Yeah, so you can bet that if I was a Hebrew back in the day, and the father said, look, we have this issue in the camp, we need to take care of it. Yes, sir. You don't have to tell me twice. Unacceptable. So that's what's going on there in Leviticus 18:21. Ugh, gosh, it just makes me sick thinking about it. One of the charities that we support with Patreon money is a bunch of door kickers that rescue children from the international sex trade. And sometimes they get a little sloppy and the people that they're supposed to arrest accidentally get wounded or terminated. Good. Stay sloppy with that kind of wet work. I'm all on board with it. You can have as many of those oops moments as you want. I'm cool with it. And so are they. Yeah. Good. All right. 18:22. And do not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. That right there is the homosexuality clause, and it drives people crazy. There it is. It's there. And do not lie with a male as with a woman. It is an abomination. And do not have intercourse with any beast to defile yourself with it. And a woman does not stand before a beast to mate with it. It is a perversion. And no bestiality. And do not defile yourselves with all these, for by all these the nations are defiled, which I am driving out before you. Okay. By all these the nations are defiled. All these things that we just discussed, not just the Moloch and the lying, two males lying together and bestiality, but all of this lying with your brother's father's naked crookedness, blah, 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 blah. By all of these, the nations are defiled, which I am driving out before you. The land of Canaan. He's driving out these people to get rid of them so that his people don't dwell within their midst and then therefore suffer for it. I mean, it starts right here. 18:3, do not do as they do in the land of Mitzrayim where you dwelt, and do not do as they do in the land of Canaan where I am bringing you. Okay, you don't do these things. They did this where you came from, and they did this. They're doing this where you're going. We don't do these things. Boy, that's a teaching for our day and age. Oh, what are you talking about, T? I don't sacrifice children in fire. Yeah, but you do a lot of worldly things, and I know you do, because so do I. And I need to not be doing them, and you need to not be doing them. We have to remember that. You know, one of the things that I talk about repeatedly is, come out of her, my people, which I got from Pastor Joe, which he got from Revelation, which Revelation got from, I think, Jeremiah, or maybe it was Isaiah, Yeshayahu. Anyway, I go back to the city now. I can't stand it. I hate it. Like, it turns my stomach. And so it's not just, it's like a physical manifestation of my spirit. Like, It's not just a cute little phrase where we come out here and we live a set apart lifestyle. It's like that lifestyle also requires me to be set apart from where I came from. And there's physical ramifications if I'm not. Like, man, I get anxiety. My stomach turns in knots. I'm angry. I'm on edge. I'm in yellow, just ready to tick over to red. That quick. Yeah, because we're not supposed to be there in the first place. I wasn't. I was let out of there. All right. But you shall guard my laws and my right rulings, and not do any of these abominations, the native nor stranger who sojourns among you. Because the men of the land who were before you have done all these abominations, and thus the land became defiled. So the people who were here before you defiled the land. So let not the land vomit you out for defiling it, as it vomited out the nations that were before you. Ooh. For whoever does any of these abominations, those beings who do them shall be cut off from among their people. And you shall guard my charge, so as not to do any of these abominable laws, which were done before you, so as not to defile yourselves by them. I am Yahweh, your Elohim. So, who am I? I'm Yahweh, your Elohim. Remember that, son. I'm talking to you. You don't do these things. You do my things. It's important to, or it's perhaps important to understand here that there's a Hebrew word. There's 3 different spellings of it. Sheketz, shekutz, and shakalaka, I believe, is the third pronunciation. And it's the same word, or just a very slight variation on the same word for both abomination and idolatry. And so one way that you could, and I think it makes more sense here when you think about it, well, what's an abomination? You can look that up, and the answer is pretty much defined as vile sin. Vile sin. Ugh. Think about the vileness of all this. Laying with children. I mean, I don't have a stepmom, but let's say you had a stepmom and you got her pregnant. Have fun explaining that one. Tell me that's not vile, right? So here we go, back in 1821, Molech. That's vile. That's disgusting. Okay. And then 22, do not lie, a male with a woman, it is an abomination. If you take that word abomination, sheketz, and if you just translate that as idolatry, do not lie, a male as with a woman, it is idolatry. And I'm just going to go ahead and say these things. I know many a gay person. I've had several friends who are gay. I have a relative who dabbles in it. And I think that there are some people who from birth have just been wired. It's their nature. I think there's some people, the majority of people, who choose to be gay. They choose to conduct their life that way. Even those that are wired that way, I do still believe it's a choice. Yeah, it can be an agonizing choice. Because every fiber of their being says, do this thing, and you're saying, no, I'm not doing it. That'd be agonizing. But I know a lot of people that treat homosexuality almost precisely the way you would treat idolatry. It's a choice that they choose to engage in. They conduct themselves in a certain way because of the choice that they've made. And it's something that they worship, they put up on a pedestal, and it becomes the defining factor for them. Well, I'm gay. Good. Don't care. And just to be completely clear, politically, I don't care. Spiritually, where do I land? You need redemption just as much as I need redemption if you're gay. Shall we sin all the more so that grace may abound? No, God forbid. 1 John 3:4, what is sin? Transgression of the law. What is the law? We just read it. There's no, as I understand it, big sin and little sin. There's sin. And Yeshua came to do away with all of that. But that doesn't mean that we abuse the grace of Messiah by continuously sinning. That's where it gets tricky. So, I don't know. Lay down. Lay down. I don't know. That's one hell of a way to talk to a toddler, T. That was a puppy. Good dog. Good Lucy. I believe it's a choice that we make every day. I can be racked with, we'll just say, hormonal lust. Man, I'm horny. Okay, and I'm just relating this to me, right, as a man. Okay, well, there's an appropriate way and an inappropriate way for me to handle that. I have a wife with which I am commanded to become one flesh, right? And we're told in 1 Corinthians 7 that we are not to keep each other from each other, right? Lest sin would gain a foothold, because if there's not an outlet for that, if there's not a healthy outlet for that, sin could absolutely gain a foothold through, lust, adultery, doing the whoring of my own eyes, so forth and so on. But I could choose, and I have at times in my life just chosen, I'm fighting this thing tooth and nail. I'm not doing this. And it's agonizing, but I'm not doing it. So even though every fiber of my being says we're going to do this thing, I can say no, we're not doing it. And so there, I think, with that particular line there, and do not lie with a male as with a woman, it is an abomination, or it is idolatry, it is shikutz. Okay, it's uncomfortable. Good. We don't do our things. We do Yah's things. And if we do our things, there's redemption for all of us, regardless. Any of you that has broken the least of these has broken the entire Torah. Yep. Doesn't mean we don't try, though. So, guys, that's 17 and 18. Bless you. Thank you for being here. Don't go do the idol stuff, man. I'm going to drink some coffee. And then we're going to read the New Testament, which we'll post on Sunday. You'll be seeing this Friday evening or Saturday, also known as Shabbat. And then we'll have Matthew 8 that we'll post Sunday morning. Shalom, y'all.